What the f***, McLaren? The McLaren Formula One team has everything going for them. A huge lead in the constructor standings, a fantastic dominant car most of the time, and their two drivers get to decide who takes the driver's title home. Why then does this team give us F1 fans the ick so often? Is it the calm Oscar Piastri? Or the sweet Lando Norris? Or is it the overbearing team principal Andrea Stella who ruins the party? Let's find out. At the Monza Grand Prix, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were trailing behind Max Verstappen, who dominated the race. They decided to go long on their medium tyres to swap them for softs, where Max Verstappen had switched to the more conventional hards after a stint on mediums. Norris was asked if he was okay with Piastri getting pitted first, and he answered that that was okay as long as he wasn't undercut. The reason why McLaren did this was for the minute chance that the slower Ferrari of Charles Leclerc would undercut Piastri. So Piastri went in first, no problem. And then Norris pitted. But there was a malfunction in the wheel gun. So the pit stop was slow and Piastri was ahead of Norris. Now Norris also agreed on the later pit stop to wait for a possible safety car. But that didn't happen. In any case, Piastri was asked over the radio to let Norris by, and was reminded about the situation that occurred in Hungary a year earlier. And Oscar said that pit stops are part of racing, so outside of the rules, but he would do it anyway. So we saw a swap in positions, and Norris gained 3 points on his title rival. The Italian fans didn't like that at all, because they already hate McLaren and team orders are just not their cup of tea. Then on social media, all hell broke loose. Lando Norris fans are crying because their honey was booed out and received negative comments about the swap. Oscar Piastri fans were angry at McLaren because they feel Norris gets favoured, and the McLaren team had all the pundits and all the YouTubers arguing about the swap as well. It was a fun race in many ways, and not just because Max Verstappen dominated like it was 2023 again. Now, who's really to blame for this mess? Let's get to the bottom of this. Can we blame Lando Norris for this awkward situation? Well, yes. If he had just said,
"I'm in the lead, I get pitted first,"
then there wouldn't have been an issue. In fact, Piastri might have lost a place to Leclerc then, which would have improved Lando's position in the standings a little bit more. Sure, there are reasons why Norris listened to the team. We'll talk about what happened a day earlier later in this video. Still, I'd love it if Lando Norris realized more that he's in a very, very fortunate position this season. Driving that beautiful MCL39 and only one driver to beat to win the greatest honor in motorsport, the WDC, the almighty World Drivers' Championship in Formula One. There are only 34 F1 drivers in the history of F1 who have won this honor. For Norris to say things like, "in 200 years it will all be forgotten," goes against everything that this sport is all about. And saying that you don't want to be an asshole, like Max and Lewis, because you want to do it in a nice way, is a major cop-out. It's just because he can't handle bad publicity. Well, you're gonna get bad publicity anyway. So might as well do it with a WDC trophy next to your Quadrant gaming setup. Sport is all about fighting for every last point. You owe it to your team, your parents and yourself. And don't forget the horde of loyal fans who follow Lando Norris whenever possible. I spoke to 3 girls from Kent who bought tickets for the Lando stand in Silverstone and were in Holland for the full 3 days in Zandvoort. That's a couple of grand these 20-year-olds spend from their wages to see their hero. They deserve more than what they've been getting from Lando, in my opinion. So I blame Lando for not grabbing what is his and the way he keeps hanging his head towards whatever the team says all the time. It's time to take a note out of the Vettel playbook and multi-21 that shit. Okay, rant over. Now I'm gonna have a word about Oscar. My Aussie subscribers will love this bit. Oscar Piastri is also to blame. He is way too laid back and doesn't seem to realize how small a margin 31 points is. We have sprint races coming up and another 200 points to be won in races. A DNF can happen, and I'll tell you something else, it can happen twice too. Max Verstappen had mechanical problems in 2 races early in 2022. So Oscar needs to destroy Norris so that he has a big enough buffer to suffer a couple of mishaps. I mean, drivers like Antonelli, Sainz and Lawson exist. They go bowling nearly every race. In Monza, Oscar didn't have the best weekend. He was behind Norris in almost every session. To come away from there with a bigger lead would mentally finish the already feeble Lando Norris. It's not like Lando Norris hasn't benefited from certain McLaren pit strategies. That one stop in Hungary was mighty handy for Norris. I'm afraid that Piastri is slightly too confident in his ability to stay on top of Norris. So he granted him those 3 points. It looked decent enough that he did it without the moaning Norris always does. But still, if he had finished the race in that position and he and his manager Webber would have argued later, they would have had that 6-point swing. Mind you, Norris might not have made it into Q2 a day earlier if it wasn't for the tow he got from Oscar a day earlier during quali. He needs to stop doing that as well. Just say,
"Screw you, Lando. Stop bottling."
the world champions before 2025 would all have said that, and that's why they won 7 and 4. See, it's not just this season we're talking about. McLaren might be brilliant again next season, and if Norris starts 2026 confident, Piastri will have a stronger opponent again. Whereas if he had finished him, he won't. Anyway, that was my rant about Oscar. He just needs to wake up. That leaves the McLaren team. Now, I know Zak Brown brought in a shit ton of sponsors to McLaren, and they probably feel the need to be politically correct and have no scandals. I get that. But team orders and the constant interference of the team in the races are killing racing. Callum Nicholas, the former Red Bull mechanic who's a writer now, called it sanitizing races, which I think is a brilliant term for what Andrea Stella does. The McLaren team boss thanked Piastri, who didn't make it hard at all. And even if those are really kind words, it's given me a bad feeling. Races like that feel artificial and phony. I feel the drivers put up a brave face, but neither of them really enjoys it. And most of all, the fans, who pay a fortune for tickets or a fortune for their Sky Sports F1 subscription, who get up at all hours of the day to watch some exciting racing. They all lose in these situations. I honestly don't understand Stella and his philosophy of having 2 number 1 drivers. His greatest success was at Ferrari when Michael Schumacher was dominating, and he demanded a second driver next to him, and that worked just fine. With Bottas next to Norris or Piastri, they would have won the constructors just as well, and we know you can tell that guy to do anything. We, as fans, are promised a title fight because McLaren lets them race, and then every possibility of a bit of needle is nipped in the bud. All this talk about fairness and principles is just as lame as that whole papaya rule spiel. It's disgusting! The interviews afterwards are nauseating with all that emphasis on teamwork and what have you. My sympathy for that team in 2015 with the Honda engine problems to what they are now is completely gone. Phew! I got that out of my system. What now, you ask? Norris needs to grow a pair, Piastri needs to wake the fuck up, and Stella needs to shut the fuck up and really let them race. The whole world is watching, and those 2 drivers need to realize that they have one opportunity to seize everything they ever wanted in one moment. Will they capture it or let it slip? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I'm trying to reach 5k before the year is over. If you're interested in earlier access to my videos and extra content, then have a look at the membership option. Take care now. Doei doei.